The laughter came fast and careless, the kind that fills a large room and makes one person feel suddenly very small, and it echoed off the polished floors of the truck showroom as the ragged man stood there with grease on his hands and dust on his boots, calmly pointing toward 5 brand-new Mercedes trucks, like he was pointing at 5 ordinary tools instead of dreams worth millions. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath around him, and if you were standing there watching from the side, you might have wondered what you would do if everyone decided, in a single heartbeat, that you were nothing more than a joke. The man looked out of place in every obvious way. His jacket was worn thin at the elbows, his jeans patched more than once, his beard streaked with grey and neglect. A heavy canvas bag hung from his shoulder, frayed and misshapen, as if it had been dragged across half the country. The sales team, dressed in crisp suits and confident smiles, had already decided his story before he finished his sentence. They saw a man who probably couldn't afford a single tire, let alone 5 of the most powerful trucks on the floor, and yet there was something steady in the way he stood, one hand resting on the grill of the nearest truck, like he recognized the machine not as a luxury, but as a partner in work. It makes you pause and think, doesn't it, about how quickly we measure people by their appearance and how often we are wrong. His name was Thomas Reed, though no one bothered to ask at first. Years earlier, Thomas had been someone else entirely. He had owned a small transport company in Ohio, built from nothing but long nights, borrowed tools, and a stubborn belief that hard work would eventually pay off. Then came the accident on a winter highway, a chain reaction of ice and steel that crushed 3 of his trucks and left him with hospital bills, lawsuits, and a broken shoulder that never healed right. Insurance fell short, partners walked away, and within 2 years, Thomas lost his home, his business, and the quiet pride he used to carry. He drifted from job to job, sleeping in his truck when he had one, shelters when he didn't, carrying that same canvas bag filled with paperwork, old permits, and contracts that once meant everything. If this were you, standing where he stood, would you still believe the world owed you a chance? Or would you have given up long ago? The women who laughed loudest that day were managers from a regional logistics firm visiting the dealership to finalize their own purchase. Margaret Collins led them, sharp-eyed and self-assured, followed closely by Rachel Owens and Bethany Price. All successful, all certain they knew what a serious buyer looked like. To them, Thomas was a distraction, a moment of dark humor in an otherwise productive afternoon. Margaret pointed at his bag and shook her head, convinced it held nothing but dirty clothes and empty promises. None of them noticed how Thomas' eyes flicked briefly toward the trucks, calculating weight limits, fuel efficiency, axle strength, as if he were already planning routes and schedules in his mind. What they didn't know was that Thomas hadn't walked into that showroom on a whim. For months he had been quietly working under the table, hauling storm debris, helping small farmers move equipment, rebuilding trust one job at a time. A church group in Missouri had helped him get back on his feet, not with pity but with opportunity, connecting him to disaster relief contracts no one else wanted because the margins were thin and the work was brutal. Thomas took every job, reinvested every dollar, and partnered with a faith-based non-profit that believed in second chances more than polished resumes. The contracts grew, the payments stabilized, and one unexpected federal relief agreement changed everything. The money was real, sitting safely in escrow, waiting only for proof of equipment purchase. 5 trucks were not a fantasy, they were a necessity. When the sales manager finally approached, more out of obligation than interest, Thomas explained what he needed with calm precision. 5 identical Mercedes trucks, configured for long-haul recovery work, delivered within weeks. The manager hesitated, glanced at Margaret and her colleagues, and smiled awkwardly, clearly expecting the conversation to end. Instead, Thomas reached into his bag and pulled out neatly organized documents, bank confirmations, signed contracts, and letters of intent. The room shifted. The laughter died first, then the confidence. One by one, assumptions collapsed under the weight of undeniable proof. Margaret's face tightened as she realized what was happening. The man she had mocked was not only